There is a creature Tolkien barely names in The Hobbit, a thing that lives beneath a mountain, alone in the dark, talking to itself in riddles. Just a stepping stone between Bilbo and the ring, a creature most people ignore. But Gandalf didn't, because Gandalf understood something that almost nobody else in Middle-earth did. Gollum was the most dangerous loose thread in the world, and he couldn't leave it roaming free. So he searched for it, hunted it, a hunt that lasted decades, crossed multiple countries, and involved some of the most powerful figures of the age. You probably know it happened. You've probably never heard the full story. Today we're fixing that. The films give us about 2 minutes for what happens next. Gandalf shows up, asks Frodo a few questions, drops a name, and the ring goes into the fire. The book takes much longer. In The Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes what is essentially a long, uncomfortable interrogation disguised as a fireside chat. Gandalf doesn't just confirm the ring is dangerous. He reconstructs its entire history, step by step. And he does it the way a man does when he's been working on a problem for a very long time and is now, finally, ready to share what he knows. The conversation starts with Bilbo's story, the finding, the pity, the riddle game. But then Gandalf stops and says something that changes the entire weight of the scene. I began to wonder about Gollum and the source of his treasure, not about the ring, about Gollum. That's where Gandalf starts. Because Gandalf had already begun pulling on that thread, quietly, without telling anyone, before Bilbo ever left the Shire. He tells Frodo that Gollum's riddle game had disturbed him, that Bilbo's claim about finding the ring on the ground had never quite sat right, that over the years, watching Bilbo's strange attachment to the thing grow, watching the way it lingered, watching how Bilbo could never quite bring himself to give it away, Gandalf had been piecing together a theory so alarming that he hadn't wanted to say it aloud until he was sure. And to be sure, he needed to find Gollum. But first, he needed to tell Frodo who Gollum actually was. Gollum's history, Gandalf explains, goes back nearly 500 years. He was once a hobbit-like creature, one of the river folk who lived along the banks of the Gladden Fields, near the confluence of the Gladden River and the Anduin. His name was Sméagol. His cousin was Sméagol. On Sméagol's birthday, Sméagol found a golden ring in the mud of the riverbed. The moment Sméagol saw it, the ring was already working on him. He murdered Sméagol for it without hesitation. And from that day, it didn't stop working. His skin grew pale. His eyes grew large and pale. He thinned. He flinched from daylight. The other hobbits of the Gladden Fields noticed. They saw what he was becoming, the sounds he made in his throat, and they called him Gollum. Eventually he was driven out or left. It hardly mattered which. There was no place for him among the living anymore. He retreated to the misty mountains, deep underground, beside a cold lake in the roots of the earth, where no sun could reach him and no one could find him. He stayed there for nearly 5 centuries, alone, hating the light, hating the world above, hating everything, except the ring, which he loved more than anything he had ever known. He hated it and loved it in equal measure, and that contradiction was all that was left of him. Then Bilbo came, the riddle game, the loss, and the love Sméagol had carried for 500 years in the dark proved stronger than his hatred of the light. It pulled him up out of the mountains, back into the world he despised, and sent him searching. When the ring was gone, what was left of him went in search of it. And this is where Gandalf's account becomes extraordinary, because he admits plainly that for a long time he didn't know any of this. He suspected. He had fragments. But the full picture only came together over years of searching. After the events of The Hobbit, around the year 2941 of the Third Age, Gandalf began asking questions, quietly, among the dwarves who had known Bilbo's route, among the rangers who moved through the wilderness between the Shire and the Misty Mountains, among the various unsavory contacts a wizard accumulates over a very long life. And the answers he kept getting pointed in the same direction, south and east, into the dark places, into Wilderland and beyond. Gollum's trail led out of the Misty Mountains, through Wilderland, along the eaves of Mirkwood, through the lands of the Men of the Lake, past Dale, following Bilbo's own route, step by step, as if retracing a path he could smell but not see. Bilbo had taken the ring south toward the Shire, and Gollum was being pulled in the same direction, compelled by something older and deeper than reason. But Gollum was not the only one looking. At some point during this search, Sauron became interested in Gollum again, because Sauron had once had him, had captured him, questioned him, and learned 2 words, Shire and Baggins, and then released him. Not out of mercy, Sauron does not do mercy, but because a creature that had held the One Ring was more useful free than imprisoned. Gandalf, meanwhile, was stretched thin. He had other responsibilities, other fronts to watch. He knew he had to move carefully. If he tipped his hand too soon, if Sauron realized how close the West was to understanding where the ring had gone, the enemy would move before anyone was ready. So he turned to Aragorn. This is the part the films almost entirely leave out. In the years leading up to the War of the Ring, Aragorn, then known in the north as Strider, was actively hunting Gollum on Gandalf's behalf. He tracked him through the dead marshes, through the wastelands east of the Anduin, further south than any ranger had cause to go. In the year 3017 of the Third Age, Aragorn caught him. Gollum was found near the very borders of Mordor, skulking at the edge of the land as if he'd been waiting to be let back in. Aragorn brought him north, not to the Shire, that would have been too dangerous, to Mirkwood. And there, Gollum was placed in the custody of Thranduil's elves while word was sent to Gandalf. Gandalf went to Mirkwood himself. He sat with Gollum and drew out the creature's history, the Gladden Fields, Sméagol, the cave, the 5 centuries of darkness, the loss of the ring, the wandering, and crucially, the words Sauron had taken from him, Shire, Baggins. When Gandalf heard those words, in the dungeons of Mirkwood, from Gollum's own lips, that was the moment he knew. The ring was in the Shire. Sauron already knew where to look, and time was running out. That's the scene in Bag End. That's why Gandalf is so grave, so deliberate, so careful. He isn't just telling Frodo a story. He's telling him that the worst-case scenario has already begun. And while that conversation is happening, Gollum is still in Mirkwood, still a prisoner of Thranduil. He doesn't stay there. The elves, following the customs of their people, had given him some limited freedom in the wood, watched but not caged in a cell. And in the summer of 3018, while being escorted through the forest, Gollum managed to escape. He climbed a tree. His guards were attacked by orcs. Whether by coincidence or Sauron's design, Tolkien leaves deliberately uncertain. And in the chaos, Gollum vanished. He wouldn't be found again until Frodo and Sam encountered him by the shores of the Aemon Muil, long after Gandalf had fallen in Moria and the Fellowship had broken apart. Gollum was loose, unaccounted for. And whatever he carried, the location of the Shire, the name Baggins, everything Sauron had already extracted from him, was free to follow him wherever he went. Gandalf's account in Bag End is not exposition. It's a confession. He's telling Frodo, I knew something was wrong. I went looking, and what I found is worse than I feared. And that's the story of the hunt. Gollum loved the thing that was destroying him. For 500 years he loved it, and he never let go. Sometimes the hardest thing is to let go of what we love, even when it's the thing that's destroying us. Gollum escaped from Mirkwood, and perhaps he escaped because Thranduil simply didn't care enough to stop him. Find out why Thranduil didn't care in this video.